Milani, and I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Strategic and Diplomatic Studies. Dr. Brindley, the members of our advisory board, Dr. Rose, Dr. Holbrook, Mr. Wilhite, Dr. Stantz, and Mr. Mitchell, our great supporters, ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished speakers and moderators. On behalf of USF World and our center, I welcome all of you to this timely and important event. I want to take a few minutes to explain to you why we decided to have this conference and what I hope we can achieve by the end of the day. I think you all agree with me that we live in a very polarized environment and society. We have red states versus blue states, and I think the result of the last presidential election showed how deeply divided this country has become. One candidate won the popular vote, and the other candidate won the electoral college. So many scholars, so many observers are now worried. They talk about polarized democracy. Some have gone as far as suggesting that the foundation of American democracy is now fragile. Well, what is the result of this highly polarized environment? I can think of three. One is that we no longer talk to one another. We hear each other, but we don't talk to one another. We don't try to understand the other side. We think our side is the only side, and there is no other side. As a result of this, we have become less tolerant. I've had the great pleasure of living in this country for almost 50 years now, from the days of Berkeley to today, during the Trump presidency. And I can tell you, my experience is that this society has become less tolerant. And I don't think most of you would disagree with me. And finally, the problem with this polarization is that we read the newspapers and watch TV programs that only reinforces our own worldview. We don't want to hear somebody else challenging our perspectives. Well, some institutions thrive from this highly polarized environment, but not universities. I think universities are, by their very nature, where ideas can compete. To use a Middle Eastern concept, I can say universities are the bazaar of ideas. This is where we debate. And democracy cannot survive without debate, without dissent. After watching the presidential elections in 2017, I decided to focus on foreign policy challenges that the new administration faces. And this is when I contacted a number of friends and a number of prominent scholars asking them to join us today. I made that focus on foreign policy for A, there is very little knowledge about foreign policy in this country. And if you go back to the presidential debate, you will remember that not much was said of substance. A few slogans here and there, but no serious discussion of foreign policy. The second reason why I've chosen these challenges is because the days where America could live in isolation are over. It is an illusion to think that what happens in the Middle East is not going to have an impact on you. Please take a moment and go back to what happened on 9/11. A few delusional men, a few terrorists came to this country and changed the course of history of this country. Therefore, we need to know what is going on in the rest of the world. I have invited 7 highly qualified people who will have diverse points of view about the Trump presidency and the challenges we have. We're going to start the day with first speaker who is going to talk about the foundation of President Trump's foreign policy. Then we're going to have another speaker who is going to talk about Islamist movements under the Trump presidency. The third speaker is going to focus on GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, consisting of 6 highly developed and rich countries in the Persian Gulf. And then the last speaker in the day is going to talk about Afghanistan and what is taking place in that country. In the afternoon, we're going to start our day with a discussion about Russia and U.S.-Russia policy under President Trump. Then we're going to move to China and U.S. policy. Finally, to Iraq and Trump. And of course, the last speaker, yours truly, is going to talk about something that you all know a great deal about, Iran's nuclear program, and whether it's going to survive under President Trump or not. Let me make 2 important points about this conference. Number one, this is not a political event. It is an academic event. We are not here to trash anybody, and we are not here to praise anybody. We are here to understand. And second, most importantly, I can tell you, I do not speak on behalf of the university or USF World. And I'm pretty sure every speaker today will tell you they are independent thinkers and they do not represent or present the point of view of the institutions with which they are affiliated. So please fasten your seatbelts, open your minds, and enjoy this long day intellectual journey. I promise you, at the end of the day, you will be more frustrated, but you will have more knowledge and more understanding of the great challenges we face. Before I introduce Dr. Brindley, who is sitting here impatiently waiting to come here and shine, let me express my sincere and great gratitude to the staff, to the great staff of USF World. And I know I'm going to miss some names, but if they are here, please raise your hand. Faye Bahraini is right there. Jessica Reitman, she is not here, she is outside. Mary Cardenas, she is outside. Adriana Morales, Brian Tompkins is sitting right here. Brian Gavin, 2 great students we have, Mr. Fett and Mr. Hall, and of course, the good folks of USF Foundation. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Roger Brindley, the USF System VP, and the man who heads USF World. And I have to tell you, and I don't praise people cheaply. When I praise, I expect to get something in return. He has been a great supporter of our center, and without his support, we could not be where we are. I must also ask you to give a nice round of applause for him and for Dr. Holbrook, who's sitting here. It was during her term that this center was established 5 years ago, and I'm grateful to both of you for helping me make this center a reality. So it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce you to Dr. Roger Brindley, a great man, a fantastic friend, and somebody who is going to tell you the truth in the next 5 minutes.
Thank you, I think. I'm absolutely delighted you're here today, and I would like to echo most of those comments. I'm delighted that Dr. Holbrook's with us today. Can't wait to the room, if you will. Please know that we have a highly energetic, boisterous, and passionately engaged board for the Center for Strategic and Diplomatic Studies. So if you're a board member, if you'd be kind enough to raise your hand. And I have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to this conference on behalf of President Gershon and Provost Wilcox. It is indeed a timely conference, and we're particularly grateful to our distinguished speakers, who despite their own heavy schedules have agreed to participate in an important event at a very important moment in time. Just walking in this morning, President Assad has decried the videos showing the use of chemical warfare in Syria as, quote, 100% fabrication, close quote, and that's the leading headline this morning. So these are not only remarkable times, but these are rapidly moving times. And this conference couldn't come at a better moment. I want to take a little bit of time to talk to you about the Center for Strategic and Diplomatic Studies. It's now been established 5 years as part of USF World, established under Dr. Holbrook. And in the last 5 years, the Center has organized 8 major conferences around global challenges. With the leadership of Dr. Milani, we've conducted 26 conversations with prominent figures. And in these one-on-one conversations, we promote critical discourse and understanding. And we've had conversations with such dignitaries as Thomas Pickering, former ambassador to Russia, and the UN, Mike Morrell, former acting CIA director, Gary Seymour, former White House advisor on weapons of mass destruction, Roger Cohen, the columnist of the New York Times, and David Ignatius, a columnist of the Washington Post. Over these 5 years, the Center has brought to our campus 94 prominent speakers, including 11 former ambassadors, 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, 2 columnists from the Washington Post and New York Times, 52 leading experts in their field, and 27 government officials and policymakers. These conferences and these conversations have increased the academic awareness and the academic reputation of USF, as well as our students' global awareness. Altogether, several thousand members of our community have attended these events, and we have had 28 whole classes of USF students attend these events as well over the last 5 years. The Center has actively reached out to students on our campus. As many of you know, Goal 1 of the USF Strategic Plan calls for us to graduate globally competent students. So, the Center for Strategic and Diplomatic Studies has signed an MOU with the USF Student Government Office around new conversations around global affairs. The first of the student government conversations was with General Wesley Clark, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. And the Center has also collaborated with the Corbell School of International Studies in Denver and our dear friend Christopher Hill to organize 2 conferences, and with the British Consul General in Miami to organize a 3rd. So you see, the Center for Strategic and Diplomatic Studies is an organization that we're proud of. It has also offered 7 internship opportunities to graduate students to study through the Center. Most recently, a remarkable scholar from the Australian National University spent an entire semester with us. And these are impressive achievements. But in an era of blatant misinformation and alternative facts, the need for a thoughtful and moderating space where we can make better sense of our world through debate and deliberation is more important than ever. Our student body at USF deserves to experience a model of decency and diplomacy at a time when exemplary practice in this field is hard to locate, at least in our national politics. USF is a university that embraces that responsibility. We've expanded the center about as far as we can without me now turning to our community for support. We need the financial communications of our community so that we can organize a greater number of timely conferences, such as the one we're attending today. If we wish to reach more people and affect greater civil discourse, then it will take our society to support us. This is why we've placed on your seats an envelope from the USF Foundation. I strongly urge you to contribute to the centre, and please remember your gifts are tax deductible and are spent according to USF's strict rules and regulations. You may mail the envelope, or you may give them to one of the staff at the registration desk, or you can personally hand them to me. That's my pitch, Mosen.
Thank you.
I think it's time for a video. I'd like to share with you a 3-minute video on the centre at this time.
We organize biannual conferences in which we invite prominent scholars and experts to discuss important issues related to global security.
This is a conference, a one-day conference put on by Dr. Milani and the center, and it offers people just generally interested to the community in what is going on in the contemporary Middle East.